This is the Never Ending 80s podcast. I am your host, J.C.Hollywood, and every episode I will sit down with a special guest and ask them for their favourite 80s song, their favourite 80s album, their favourite 80s movie, their favourite 80s TV show, and their personal favourite 80s memory. My guest today is Commonwealth Games silver medalist Peter Hadfield. He represented Australia in the Decathlon in the 1980 and 1984 Olympic Games. He's a great guy, and I can't wait to chat to him. All right, Peter Hadfield, welcome to the Never Ending 80s podcast.
Absolutely delighted to be here, Jason.
Oh, it's lovely to have you. You are quite a long list of achievements. I've been doing a bit of reading about you. It's quite amazing. Two-time Olympic representing Australia at the 1980 and 84 Olympics. You won the silver medal. I couldn't work out if it was you won the silver medal in 1978.
Yeah, I was in the Commonwealth Games in 1978. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you also won the 2006 Order of Australia medal, which it must have been quite an honour.
Yeah, at the Australia Day honours to receive an OAM was definitely a surprise for services to sport and also some of the charity work that I was doing. So yeah, that was a real surprise, but felt very humble at the time and a great honour. Yeah,
that's great. If I haven't mentioned for the people listening, it's in Decathlon you were representing Australia.
That's right, and I suppose I should probably explain what the decathlon is, because most people have got absolutely no idea. It's a 2-day athletics event. We start off with 100 metres and then a long jump, shot put, high jump, 400 metres. Get a night's rest, maybe. Get out the next morning and do the 110 metre high hurdles, then discus, pole vault, javelin, and the last event's the 1500 metres.
It's got to be brutal. It has to take its toll on you, surely.
It does, actually, but I'd rather do that than run a marathon or do a triathlon. At least we used to get a rest in between events, so it wasn't as though it was a continual thing. It did take a long time, though. We started warming up about 7 o'clock in the morning. Probably the first event would start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then through the day, in Olympic competition particularly, we mightn't finish up until 10:30, 11 o'clock each night. And at both Olympic Games, after we'd finished the 1500 metres, then I had to do a obligatory drug test, and being dehydrated, I don't think I got the drug test done until about 2 in the morning. So yeah, they were definitely 2 long days.
Oh, that's got to be brutal. Actually, it's interesting because I did read in the Sydney Morning Herald in 2006, you actually it said that you were upset about the decline of interest in the sport. You must be pretty ecstatic at the moment. It seems to have got that little bit of a boost with the latest Olympics.
Well, it certainly has. We've got an absolute superstar who's already won the bronze medal in Tokyo just a couple of weeks ago, Ash Maloney from Queensland, and his training partner, Cedric Dubler, who received a whole stack of media coverage because he was encouraging him in the 1500 metres. So Ashley has the potential to be a world champion and break the world record. He's only 21 years of age now, number 3 in the world at the Olympic Games. And, I think he really has the potential, so long as he's not rushed along and he's nurtured and his connections look after him properly. But yeah, back in those days, and even when I was competing, not too many people know what the decathlon was and what was involved. And I always remember, and this is a true story, I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard after the Los Angeles Olympics, just wearing a T-shirt and a pair of shorts. And up until that period in my life, I was the number 1 decathlon representative in Australia for 10 consecutive years. Had never once been asked for an autograph. Didn't even read a results column once when I won my 10th title in the local Sydney papers here. And I can remember when I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard, this quite attractive young lady came racing out across the street with this beautiful leather-bound autograph book in her hand, and she was screaming out, "Please stop, please stop." And I was most taken back that somebody had recognised who I was. I thought she must have been paying lots of attention at the LA Games. And so I started to write best wishes, and I asked her name, and her name was Louise. So I was going, oh, best wishes, Louise. And then she said to me, oh, I thought you were fantastic in the Superman movie. So I don't know whether it was because I was tall or because I had dark hair or whatever. So my one and only autograph that I've ever signed in my career, Jason, was to Louise, best wishes, and I just signed it Christopher Reeve and gave it to her. So that was it. So certainly no claim for fame in the decathlon here, particularly here in Australia.
Yeah, well, hopefully that will change. I do think, certainly with Ash Maloney's run and Cedric Dubler running alongside him, it gained a lot of attention, and I think people will be a lot more interested. Here's just a question, if you can you break down how the scoring works for us? Yeah,
it's pretty straightforward. They had a stack of statisticians working on it, and it was way back in, I think, 1912. They established a base mark of 1,000 points, which was the Olympic record at the time. Right. And then they just plotted an exponential curve so that, if, for example, 100 meters, if you ran 10.6 seconds as an example, that would score you 1,000 points. If you ran 11 seconds, that would score you 900 points. So they had this fixed scoring table based on the times that you ran or the distances that you threw or the heights that you jumped. So it didn't matter whether you won an event or came last in an event. It was all based on the actual performance. So it's a little different in regard to the psyche of competition, where you're not really running against anybody else, because what you're trying to do is create a personal best and do your best performance in each of the 10 events. And then at the end of the competition, then you basically work out, okay, who's won and who hasn't. You've got a bit of a good idea on the way, but there's a fair bit of camaraderie around because of that too. You're not trying to beat the guy next to you in the lane. You're out there just trying to do the best that you can, and hopefully that'll give you your maximum points in that particular event.
Yeah. Which actually brings me to my next question, is that at the same time, basically, your career was happening at exactly the same time as Daley Thompson, was it? Or Daly?
Daley Thompson, his career and my career, as you said, unfortunately, perfectly coincided. So I finished behind him at Olympic Games and the 2 Commonwealth Games that I competed at. Won a silver medal at one of those. And he broke the world record a couple of times, won 2 Olympic gold medals, was world champion, Commonwealth champion, and he was recognised as probably the best decathlete of all time. There have been athletes that have surpassed his performances and beaten his world record, but he was certainly a tough competitor.
Yeah. Do you feel that he pushed you and made you better? Because I read that you would train for 40 hours a week.
Yeah, well, training for about 40 hours a week. Yeah. And I was there was no such thing as sponsorship or support from institutes of sport or whatever in those days. So I was a full-time high school teacher in those days. I was trained as an economics teacher, but then actually morphed into becoming a PE teacher. But I'd train in the morning. If I had a few free periods at school, I'd do some training there. I set up a weights room in a storeroom at the school I was teaching at East Hills Boys High School in Sydney, and then I'd go to the track in the afternoon. So I was sometimes training 6 hours a day, and did that for pretty much 10 years of my career. So it was tough. You had to be a good time manager, and needed lots of support, but it was enjoyable, and I wouldn't do it any other way.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. I'm sure we will come back and touch on it a bit later in the categories. I'm sure that'll come up in some of your favourite 80s memories. We might jump into the categories now, though, Peter, if we can. And the first one we're going to touch on is your favourite 80s song.
Well, my favourite 80s song, it's right on the cusp, actually. It was recorded in 1989, I think released though in early 1990, and it was Gary Moore's Still Got the Blues for You. I just thought the guitar work in that was absolutely fantastic. And being a bit of a closet guitarist, that was probably one of my favourite songs of the 80s. I've got other, I guess, more favourite songs that are early back in the the days of the blues and Clapton and Santana and back in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. But certainly anything that's got some good guitar riffs in it, that's a song that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good song. Apparently, it was his return to blues. He'd been playing a lot of hard rock, and I was reading that he did it on a Les Paul, a 1959 Les Paul that he'd bought in '89, but wasn't playing because it was a rock tune. And I read a quote from him where he said, obviously, once he started recording the blues album, he went, "Well, I'll pull the Les Paul out," and he said the first day, we did Still Got the Blues in one take straight through. It was a magical day. And I don't know if he's actually saying he did the whole album through in one take, or whether it's just the song, obviously, because the song Still Got the Blues Over You from the album Still Got the Blues.
Yeah, he's an absolutely wonderful guitarist. Great rock guitarist, but plays some fantastic blues. Has done some wonderful collaborations with Clapton and Santana. I think B.B. King he's done some stuff with. That's the beauty, I suppose, of the digital age and YouTube and what have you. You can just jump on board and listen to a whole heap of the stuff that he's done that either recorded or just did live with a whole stack of other wonderful guitarists.
Yeah. Had you been following his career much at the time? Like, was it a real surprise for you to hear him come out and sort of return to his blues roots?
Oh, probably wasn't an avid follower. I'd have to admit. Just when that song came out, I've just gone, wow! Just that opening of that really bluesy, but his style is a bit rocky as well. So there's plenty of distortion on the guitar, and it's just really powerful, that opener. And it's the first time I heard it, I've gone, wow, this is a great song, and it just stuck in my head. So the first time I heard it, I had to go in and pull the guitar out and copy it, and it's one of the songs in my repertoire now. I just love to play it.
That's great. Oh, we'll have to get you to bust it out for us at some stage.
Yeah, love to. Don't need much encouragement to get the guitars out of the box.
No, that's fantastic. I did. It was funny. I did some reading, and he apparently decided that he was going to go and do a blues thing because for a few years, whenever he was backstage before a show or just noodling around during sound check and stuff like that, he'd just start playing blues again. Even though he was actually playing a lot of heavy rock at the time. And he sort of went, oh, this is probably a sign that maybe I should record some blues again.
And I guess the thing is, too, there's just a real closeness with blues and rock. Yeah. Most of it's 12 bars, three chords with a few variations. So it's just different tempo, different tone. But it's a pretty easy transformation to go from playing a pretty heavy rock song to a nice, really melodic blues song. But even things like Deep Purple, Lazy as an example is from Deep Purple is a real rocky sounding song, but it's just really a traditional blues song played at a pretty high momentum, and again you can get the distortion on the guitars going and just go crazy, which is good fun to do as well.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your you say you're a closet guitarist. Did you get out and play live much at all?
I did a lot of live playing back in my very younger days. I started learning guitar when I was 8.
Right.
And when I was 13, I was working with a a Tijuana brass cover band and in my local area. And actually, we appeared on an episode of New Faces. I think Bert Newton was the host back then. And one of the producers of the show came up to me and just said, "I know you're a pretty good guitarist. A friend of mine is George Goller, who was a real, he was a doyen of classical guitar back then, played with the Don Burrows Quartet."
Right.
And he said, "Who's your guitar teacher?" And I just said, "Oh, it's this guy called Fred Malaby. He's just a guy who lived locally." He said, "Oh, I think you've got the potential to really go on and do something with this." So George took me on board. So I was learning jazz guitar when I was 13, and my dad had a friend who was a saxophone player in a sort of very much middle of the road dance band that played at clubs like the Bankstown Businessmen's Club or other similar clubs.
Right.
And so from the age of about 14, I was playing 2 or 3 nights a week in the whole stack of clubs around Sydney, and Dad had to take me into the club, and they had to take me past them at poker machines and out into no such thing as green rooms. They were just toilets or cupboards or whatever back then. So I played 2 or 3 times a week, at restaurants or wedding reception places, until I was, must have been 20. And then I was working a little bit, did some sessions with a few people, and writing a bit of music, but not much. Never ever singing, just playing. And then when I got involved pretty seriously in athletics, just the combination of being a muso and an athlete didn't quite mix well. So I pretty much packed the guitar away for 10 or 12 years. Didn't really play it at all. And then after I retired from athletics, I gradually got back into it. Now I play every day and try and jam with as many people as I can. I had the pleasure of having an online Zoom jam. Played a couple of songs for with Akina Edmonds, who was a star of Hamilton, and we just did a duet. I played guitar and she sang across via Zoom. So that was a bit of fun last week. But so every now and again, just love to get out, and we play a bit of Santana, or play some blues, or play some jazz, or just go crazy and play some heavy rock stuff. Just whoever's there. I must admit I haven't been performing much at all, but just loving to play as often as I can with as many people as I can. And I keep telling myself now that I've retired from full-time work that I need to get a bit serious about it and get myself involved in a band and play a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, I presumably blues is kind of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I guess I play a lot of stuff, like probably doing a lot of Clapton stuff is things that I like to do. A lot of B.B. King type things, but I play a fair bit of Santana as well. So it's really a matter of I guess the beauty of it is that I can sight read pretty much anything. So if someone throws a chart in front of me, I can play it. So there's an opportunity to play a whole stack of things. So it doesn't matter what it is. I've been doing a whole stack of pieces written by Bach, and I'm really enjoying doing those. And I'm doing some Vivaldi things as well, sort of on a distorted electric guitar, which sounds pretty cool. So it's good fun. I really enjoy, and I guess I play right across. I did 3 years of classical guitar study as well. So it's an important part of my life.
Yeah, just in between the decathlon, 10 years of decathlon at the highest level. My goodness. Oh, well, okay, so we've established you do like a bit of blues, which leads us into the next category, which is your favourite 80s album.
And again, this is probably cheating a little bit because most of the songs weren't recorded in the 80s, but it was a compilation album by Eric Clapton called Crossroads, which was a four-sided, I should say, album with lots of stuff from his early days with Cream and the Yardbirds and John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, and then some of his later stuff with Derek and the Dominoes and what have you. So love the Cream, Sunshine of Your Life, Crossroads, White Room, those sort of traditional ones. But then Layla and Cocaine, and After Midnight, some of his later ones as well. So again, you can see that there's a definite slant in making sure that there's lots of guitar in whatever it is in my favourite songs.
Yeah, I was going to say, if this was Desert Island Discs, you've got yourself set up very comfortably. It was a 4 CD box set. It was 6 vinyls in the box set there. Pretty impressive release. It's hard to get a hold of now, actually. It's kind of disappeared with subsequent sort of best of releases, which is a pity because, as you said, it had there was like an entire unreleased Derek and the Dominoes album in Crossroads, I believe. Yeah,
and I think the key there was recognised, and I think it won two Grammy Awards in the year it was released, and just everyone saw it as just the album, and the fact that there was just such a huge number of songs in there, but just really high quality songs. So his discography is just quite amazing. But then to bump that all into one box set is actually quite amazing. I don't think anybody would be able to replicate what happened back then in 1988.
Yeah, well, one of the reviews, the Rolling Stones gave it 5 stars and said it's a perfect illustration of the impact that he's had in the music industry. Like it helps you truly understand how influential he was by all encapsulated in this one box set.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You were talking about Gary Moore going from rock back to blues. Or the thing is with Clapton is that he's never travels too far from blues. He goes out and he'll play, and record and write more popular songs. But then he always heads back to those blues roots. And I think I've read a couple of his biographies and what have you, and I think that's again the genre of music that he just loves to play, and he feels that he says I'm a blues musician. That's what he classes himself at, right. Despite the fact that he can play across a whole stack of genres.
Yeah. You were correct. It won 2 Grammy Awards, Best Album Notes and Best Historical Album. It also won a couple of Billboard Awards. It was the first box set to go platinum, and it was the first box set to go double platinum.
Well, so there you go. My choice is the best. My favourite album on the 80s. A few other people might agree with me then, by the sounds of that.
I think they probably will. One thing I didn't realise about it is that the album cover, which features a painting of Eric Clapton, was done by Ronnie Wood, the guitarist from the Rolling Stones and the Faces.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that, but obviously, Ronnie's got a few extra talents as well as playing music.
He's a fascinating character in himself. I think, I also did some reading. Oh, sorry. You go.
I was going to say it's interesting too, and we've just heard the news about Charlie Watts passing away. But I think Charlie Watts did a few of the Stones album covers, and I heard his granddaughter also painted a few of their posters for concerts and what have you. So
really?
Lots of I guess artistic talent in the Stones extended family, not just Ronnie Wood.
Yeah. My goodness, they've just been getting their artistic, their creativity out wherever they can.
Yeah, it's a shame that the news that Charlie Watts passed away. He was 80 years of age, but I think that perhaps might be the end of the Rolling Stones, which has been a feature of popular music and rock and roll for so many years now, and they. I've seen their live performances a couple of times. They're just absolutely amazing musicians live, and you just think, will that be the end of the Stones?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I suspect they'll keep going as long as they can in whatever iteration they can, as long as Keith is still, as long as they can still prop him up.
Yeah, well, I think that's the key, isn't it? I think it's like a Weekend at Bernie's, I think, a little bit occasionally with Keith.
Yes. Yeah, you might even get a gig playing for him. Just standing behind him. The other thing I did want to mention about Eric Clapton, because as I was doing a bit of reading about it, his version of Cocaine, he was saying he thinks is actually a really good anti-cocaine song, which I found a pretty interesting idea. But the quote that I got was, he said, "It's no good to write a deliberate anti-drug song and hope that it'll catch, because the general thing is people will be upset by that." And he was saying the good thing about Cocaine as a song is if you listen to it, it's actually quite anti-cocaine, but people just get into it because they like the song, and they might even like it for the fact that it mentions cocaine. And I thought it was a pretty interesting thing, but that at the same time, he released it in '78, and then there was a massive boom in cocaine. So I don't know. I think so.
Yeah. Based on one of the autobiographies I've read on him, I think he was. I think he quite enjoyed it, rather than just writing a song about it.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if he was being ironic when he said it was a good anti-drug, a good anti-drug song. But I wondered whether you might think he was legitimate with that or not.
Yeah. No, it is. And it's quite amazing when you sort of look back at the artists of his generation, the influence, and particularly that they've had biographies either written for them or by they've written an autobiography, and many of whom have said, we used to go crazy on the drug scene, but now we've come through the other side, and they've become, their lifestyles actually become, I won't say puritanical, but certainly it's they're living a far better lifestyle than they did back when they were recording. And then just what influence that had on their creativity, and perhaps they may have been better musicians if they had known what they were playing, rather than just being spaced out at a live concert or at a recording studio or whatever. But we'll never know.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, there's a lot of green tea in the dressing rooms now, where didn't used to be. Okay, so we're going to move on to your next category, which is your favorite movie. And you've sent me through two, one from the start of the 80s and one from the end.
Yeah, probably given my athletic background, Chariots of Fire was one of the movies that I thought was a favourite, and I thought the story was amazing. But the thing that really got me about Chariots of Fire was that opening, that soundtrack of that. It was just such that Vangelis soundtrack was just such a powerful piece of music, and that being played with the athletes from the British team running barefooted down the beach in their old long white shorts and what have you was really impactful. And the fact that you followed through Abrahams and Little to winning their gold medals, and the dramas that were created for them to get there, that was pretty amazing. But I guess again, another little backstory to this is a very well-credentialed UK athletics coach, Tom McNabb, who was he put the decathlon program together in the United Kingdom back in my day and pre my day. He was, I guess, the athletics consultant and technical director around the athletes for that movie as well. So that ties it in a little bit to my athletics career and the reason that I liked it so much. So yeah, that was the first one. And probably something again completely different was Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams. I just thought, that was a really powerful movie. Showed a lot of compassion. Showed that by giving the right support, how adults can really influence positively, young men, and in his case, but young men and women, and that's probably one of the things that I enjoyed so much about it, that he was able to have such a positive influence on his the class that he was teaching, and bring a joy of poetry to them when they really went into poetry at the start.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hardly surprising, given, as you said, your athletics career, that Chariots of Fire's in there, and Dead Poets Society reflecting your teaching career as well. I want to dive in a little bit more with both of them, particularly with Chariots of Fire, because it comes out in '81, so you've just done the Moscow Olympics. You're a year away from the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane, and this film comes out. How are you feeling? Well, you'd have been, correct me if I'm wrong, about 26, 27?
Yeah, I was born in 55, so just right, spot on. And I guess from me it became, I suppose, an anthem. You could. When you're doing a training run or something, you could sometimes hear this music going on in your head in the background as you're running around doing repetition 300-meter sprints or 400-meter sprints or whatever it was.
Yeah,
and also motivational, I suppose. And I still really like those sorts of movies where you see someone that's working hard, getting support. Sometimes being criticised for the way that they do things, but in the end coming through and achieving success. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean winning the gold medals or whatever, but achieving that personal success. And that's one of the things that I do get a chance to speak to kids and school groups and what have you reasonably regularly. And they probably wonder who's this old fart up here on the stage, but the opportunity to encourage them to look at success not as whether you win or lose, but whether you've gone out there and you've had a real crack and done the best that you could possibly do.
Yeah, it's a great film. I didn't realise that there were actually supposed to be 3 athletes. It was 3 of the English gold medalists from that Olympic Games were supposed to be the subject of it, but one of them was not portrayed in a glowing light. He was sort of in the screenplay. He was portrayed as being rather spoiled and aristocratic, and given everything. And so he went, I don't want to be involved. I don't want my name involved. And so they had to change his character to one of the others, which I can't remember which one.
Yeah, I think there was definitely reference to it, and a very, very aristocratic hurdler who used to put champagne on the hurdles as to make sure that he didn't knock them over. But
that's right.
Yeah, it's
right.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a little license, but I think it's the movie was pretty true to the real story. Obviously, leaving out a few things.
Yeah. It was one of my favourite movies growing up, and it's funny because more often than not, I'd get through the opening scene of the theme running on the water, and then I'd go about my day because
you're probably only six years old, Jason, when that came out, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. And but it was also my mum's favourite. Her favourite line was I believe that God made me fast, and when I run I feel his pleasure, or whatever it is. She loved that little bit of it. What I didn't know was that there are lyrics to the song.
No, I wasn't aware of that either.
It was released by Melissa Manchester on her album Hey Ricky which featured her hit song, You Should Hear How She Talks About You, which I think was 82 or something. But yeah, the song, her version it's called Race to the End, and it's the Chariots of Fire theme, but with lyrics to it. And it's a pretty, inspiring, but not quite as powerful as the music alone, especially with the footage to go along with it.
Yeah, I think that combination of the slow motion running and that really powerful electric sound, melody is a combination that really achieves success.
Yeah. I did some, apparently Vangelis, they tried to, somebody brought a case against him for plagiarism on it. And he won the case by saying the only part in the song that he was accused of plagiarizing was a song called City of Violets. And he said the only chord progression that is in the theme from Chariots of Fire that's also in City of Violets is F, G, A, G.
Which could be 1,000 million songs.
Yeah, he said it's in so many other songs, including this song that I released 2 years before, City of Violets. So the judge went, "Oh, okay, well, we'll let you get away with it." Which it's a funny flip actually, because Gary Moore with Still Got the Blues, he lost a plagiarism case for the guitar solo in that to a German court. And he went, "I've never heard the song I'm accused of plagiarizing." And the judge apparently went, "Well, there's no evidence here that you've stolen the solo, but plagiarism isn't about stealing, it's about copying." And so he was ordered to pay this band that presumably he'd never heard of because he might have heard their song on the radio.
Yeah, it must be incredibly hard when you think about the myriad of songs that have been written across the centuries, and of course you've only got eight notes and some sharps and flats and what have you. So obviously there's going to be some crossovers and something that's going to sound quite familiar. And you look at also the classical periods, and every now and again someone comes up with something and said, "I didn't Brahms or Chopin or somebody do something like that," and they probably did, but again it's hard to differentiate.
Well, so I was watching a video the other night, and Katy Perry has recently lost a case to a rapper named Flame or something like that. And the guy in the video was saying that essentially what the case, her losing the case, the court has said that you're allowed to copyright the minor key because that was all it was, It was, and he demonstrated in the video that this particular progression of notes has been used in traditional carols, in classical music, but in this instance, the rapper has said, "That's my song," and the court has said yes. So he has copywritten the minor key.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess any songwriter, music writer out there has to have a very extensive catalog that they can go through to check that. Otherwise, they're going to be sued, have their socks sued off them down the track sometime if it's successful. Yeah,
and you can't. I mean, you can't be sure. You never know. It's, as you say, there's that much music out there. How do you know? Oh yes, I might have heard that on the radio, and it might have got in there, but it's a crazy time with all the litigation around music. But hopefully,
yes, unfortunately, we've become a very litigious society here, and copying what's happening in the States, where everyone's just wants to lawyer up and sue the socks off anybody they can.
Yeah. One final thing on Chariots of Fire, because I do want to discuss Dead Poets Society as well, and I thought this was just a rather interesting thing. So the title Chariots of Fire apparently comes from the biblical story of Elijah's ascent into heaven. I ended up somehow on a Fish, as in the band Fish, fan page, where someone was talking about the way that Elijah's ascent into heaven is referenced as a chariot of fire whipping him up in whirlwind and carrying him into the heavens. And they went, "Oh, that's definitely an account of an alien abduction." That's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, don't know about that one, but it sounds like a good yarn though.
Yeah, could be fun. So, Dead Poets Society. Again, yeah, the flip of your career. So you're teaching during the day, and then you're doing all your athletics by night. So, Dead Poets Society. It doesn't surprise me that it's in there. It's also a great film.
Yeah, it was a wonderful film. Again, pretty well acclaimed. I think it won Best Original Script Academy Award, and I think it was nominated for three other awards. But it just had, again, just it was compelling to watch and just to see, I guess the development of those boys through him being passionate about his teaching role. I think that's the key. It's having a passion for something and then being able to be able to instill that passion in other people is a real strength of being a good teacher. And I probably admit I wasn't the best teacher in the world. I think my interest, but I think the fact that I was trying to train and compete and what have you at the same time, I was probably a little torn about what my priorities were at that stage. But I did enjoy teaching, and actually my athletics career, my teaching career ended pretty much at the same time. I retired from athletics in 1985 and retired from teaching in 1985. I'd just done an inspection to become head of department for a PE department, but the inspector said, there's very few schools in New South Wales that have a big enough population or a big enough PE department to warrant head of department. So he said, you might have to wait for 10 years before you get a promotion. And I've gone, I wasn't so sure about that. And I'd done a little bit of part-time work in PR and media, and which took my interest. So I retired in 85 and got involved in media and public relations, initially in sport, but then more in the corporate world as well. And I've since 1985 continued to do that media and PR work, which is good fun.
Oh, that's great. So by 89, you're 4 years away from teaching. It's long enough for you to get that nostalgia for it, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. It was really a matter of this is what a good teacher should be doing, and he was fighting against I guess the norms that were created in his school. That he said, I know you can't teach that way, but he was achieving results which were more relevant to his students, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, it did win best screenplay. Tom Schulman, who wrote the screenplay, said it was based on two teachers of his, and one of them, Samuel Pickering, wrote a report, or basically wrote an account of what he was like, because he would teach standing on top of his desk, or he'd get in a garbage bin and stuff like that. And he said that he adopted this teaching method. What did he say? Not so much to awaken students as to entertain myself. His theory was if he was having fun, then the kids would have fun, and then
I think that's a great attitude. I think that's important. I think anything, it's just the same regardless of what your job is. If you're having fun, the people that are around you are having fun. It's a bit like being a musician. If you're not having fun up on stage, your audience down watching you or dancing to you is they're certainly not going to have as much fun as you if you're up there jumping around and having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about an energy exchange. I did. It went through a strange evolution, that film. At one stage, it was going to be a musical called, what was it called? The Sultans of Strut. And for a while, Jeff Canu was going to direct it. He had done Revenge of the Nerds. and he wanted Liam Neeson for the John Keating role, and but the studio wanted Robin Williams, and apparently they didn't get along, and Robin Williams didn't commit to the film, but he also didn't not commit, and so they went ahead and went, okay, well, we're going to start shooting. And they had all the sets in Atlanta. I think Atlanta was where they were going to shoot, and they had it all set up. And he never showed up for shooting. So day one of, or the only day of shooting Dead Poets Society under Jeff Canu's direction, most of that footage is them burning the sets down because they were like, oh, okay, Robin Williams isn't doing this film, so it's over. Let's just burn it all down. So.
Yeah, or with a working title like that, the Sultans. Yeah, that sounds like they were going to get Mark Knopfler to come and do the music score.
Yes, would have been fabulous. Oh, it would have been interesting, actually. So it as you say, it won Best Screenplay. Didn't win Best Picture or Best Director. Best Director that year went to Oliver Stone for Born on the 4th of July, and Driving Miss Daisy won Best Picture. So a bit of a miscarriage there, I think.
Yeah, it's I think Driving Miss Daisy was a good movie, but not quite my cup of tea, though.
Yes, yeah. So talking of your cup of tea, we come to the next category, which is your favourite TV show.
Yeah, well, this one's a bit left field, I suppose, too. In that I love quirky comedy, particularly British comedy, and things like Fawlty Towers or Blackadder were real favourites of mine. But I guess my favourite TV show of the 80s was The Young Ones, which was really left field and a bit crazy. But just seeing Vivian doing his crazy things or Rick doing their crazy things I just thought absolutely hilarious. And probably a lot of people are going, oh, that's a bit weird, that's a bit crazy, but that was just something that really I thought was hilariously funny and quite clever.
Yeah, as a pick, I mean, it did surprise me, but I mean, it's a great show. I have some really fond memories of it. Only, I think, 12 episodes in total.
Yeah. It didn't last for very long. It's a bit like Fawlty Towers. It's you think it went for 20 or 30 years, but I think there was only a handful of episodes made of Fawlty Towers, and I think The Young Ones were pretty much the same. Not much done in regard to, not a lot of longevity, but lots of quality, and as a result of that was replayed over and over and over and over again. So
yeah. It's fantastic use of musical guests as well. My strongest memory, whenever I think of Young Ones, I always remember Madness doing Our House, where they're in the middle of the street where the house is, and there's a riot going on, and they're just playing the song in the middle of it. And that's, if I hear, I think that's also partially responsible for my love of Madness, because my brother was a mad Young Ones fan, and so we'd watch it quite a bit. We had it on the Betamax cassette. We'd watch episodes, and I think Madness were guests a few times, but the music was I loved their music, but it was incorporated so well into the episode. It wasn't just, and here's a musical guest.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. You're talking about juxtaposed with just the madness that was going around on the screen. So it was an appropriate name for a band to appear in Young Ones episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very clever show. For something that is on its sleeve or on its surface is just senseless. Just comedy for comedy's sake. It's very clever, in its subverting of the. It would sort of follow the standard British sitcom formula, but then it would flip it on its head at moments and stuff like that. It would follow emotional journeys and stuff like that, but it would also. There was fourth wall breaking, literal fourth wall breaking. where they'd smash open a wall and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then you just have animation of rats or mice or something just jumping in, and Alexei Sayle would just do something absolutely strange. So it's just this sort of expect the unexpected, but it all seemed to have a pattern. And Ben Elton was not in the first few episodes, but he was one of the writers, and Ben's just got amazing. He's a bit of a comic genius, so he's done some absolutely wonderful things. So yeah.
Absolutely. Fun bit of trivia, of course, is that The Young Ones takes its title from the Cliff Richard song, The Young Ones, and obviously he's referenced constantly throughout the series. But the last word spoken on the series is Cliff, as they drive through the billboard of Cliff Richard and off a cliff. Spoiler warning.
That's if you haven't watched it yet. Again, it's that sort of marrying the image of Cliff Richard with the image of the four main characters in The Young One. Again, they're total opposite ends of the spectrum, but it all comes together nicely.
Yeah, and of course they came out with that version of Living Doll with Cliff Richard, which was that was one of the highlights of the 80s, I think, for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure Cliff's songs are my favourites, but I think I'm a bit more of a. I grew up learning all of the stuff that the Shadows used to play in my So all of those songs, the beachy sort of songs, guitar solos. That was very, very much the menu of songs that I used to play early on.
Yeah, but Wired for Sound is not high on your playlist?
No.
That's fair enough. One thing I did find out in my research about The Young Ones, it was one of the first non-music shows played on MTV.
Wow. No, definitely wasn't aware of that. Your research is going very deep here, Jason.
I just try and find the most. I look until I can find a tasty little nugget of trivia, and then go, all right, I'm done. But yeah. So for everybody that was complaining that MTV no longer plays music, it got off to a good start with not playing music when they had The Young Ones on it. So we come to your final category, which is your favourite 80s memory.
Yes, I think I probably should say that my second son and the birth of my second son and my daughter in the early 80s. I did have a son prior to 1979. I was competing with. I had two kids at the time, but I think the reality is that it was more that whole feeling of those 1980, 1984 Olympics, being a part of those two teams. Even now the opening and closing ceremonies of those 80 and 84 games and that's a bit scary that the Moscow games in 1980, 41 years ago, but the opening and closing ceremonies, what our athletes, village and the room that we stayed in was like, what all of those things are still etched as though it was a video recording, and I can remember that and love the camaraderie of being a part of the team. I probably love the fact that I was probably one of the fittest people in the country, so that was a good thing and something that I wished I would still be able to do. But the ripe old age of 66, that's well and truly past a viable goal. It's just that feeling of doing something that you love to do. The planning of your training, that preparation that you did for years at a time, as I said, for training pretty much every day for sometimes 6 hours a day, and then competing in Moscow, and then loving it so much that you wanted to keep doing it, and then going for another 4 years and competing in 1984 in Los Angeles. So I think that certainly that was the highlight for me in the 80s. really strong memories. And the beauty of it is there's a whole stack of people that were in those two teams from Australia and internationally who are still good friends, and some of my closest friends. Now we get together pretty regularly and have lunch, or one of my mates that I trained with back then's got a farm up in central New South Wales, and we go up there and have a chat, and obviously after a few wines the talk comes to our days and our performances seem to be getting better and bigger or the more years that are separated. But certainly was a wonderful time for me. And a memory that I'm absolutely delighted to being able to give the opportunity to have by representing Australia at a couple of Olympic Games.
Let me put you on the spot then. Which is your favourite Olympics? Which was your favourite?
Wow, it's a really tough question. I get asked that a lot,
right.
And I had the pleasure of the ABC radio. Basically, signing me up to do athletics commentary for them on a part-time basis for Commonwealth Games or Olympic Games. So not only did I have the opportunity to be at the two, Moscow and Los Angeles games as a competitor, but I did 7 Olympics after that as a media commentator.
Right. Yeah,
and so I've got nine Olympics to choose from that I was there and witnessing, and obviously competing. It has a stronger pull than being in the media. Yeah. But I think it's almost impossible to say what was better. They're just different. Yeah. And there's different themes. There's obviously different cultures. I remember the pageantry of Moscow, the culture of Moscow, where you had a 3,000-piece orchestra playing live, and I think a 5,000 or 10,000 person choir singing live music in the stadium, and then Mishka the bear, and then we had visits on a regular basis to the athletes' village of the Bolshoi ballet or the Cossacks dancers or those sorts of things. They come in and do an intimate live performance, Moscow Circus, all of those sorts of things. And then you go to the glitz of Hollywood and 100 white grand pianos for the opening ceremony, those sorts of things. A guy from NASA in one of those personal space jets that fly you up and flew across the stadium, and then Lionel Richie doing a live performance in the middle of the Coliseum as the closing ceremony, and so remembering all of those things, just both wonderful, both completely different, and the same thing with the 7 Olympics where I was commentating. Again, same thing, all absolutely wonderful, just different cultures, different emphasis on parts of their culture. Wonderful sporting performance, and it's a bit like spending 18 and 19 days in a Disneyland type fantasy where you're there. It's an unreal situation, but you've got 10 or 12,000 elite athletes all there trying to do their best, and you're part of it as a competitor, or you're part of it as a media commentator, watching and commentating on them, and hopefully bringing lots of joy to people who listening to it on the radio or watching it on television or watching it live in the stand. So it's all good fun. So I'm sitting on the fence. Sorry, Jason, I'm not going to tell you which is my favourite child as far as the Olympics goes.
That is, I couldn't. I didn't think that you would, and I was really only being cheeky. What about who had the best beds?
They're always terrible. The athletes' village is actually it's very difficult to sleep. In Los Angeles, as an example, we had four athletes to a room, sleeping in 2 sets of double bunks in a room that was at the University of Southern California. so it was basically a student dorm, a room for one person, and we had four. Actually, I was rooming with Robert G. Costello, who was the marathon runner,
right.
Rick Mitchell, who was a 400 runner, and Pat Scammell, who was an 800 runner, and we've all got heaps of training gear. Four guys, lots of training, lots of sweating, lots of smelly shoes, what have you. So yeah, the beds and the rooms weren't great, really cramped, hard to get sleep, lots of noise around. And then athletics is normally the back end of the program. So once there's swimming is early, so all of the athletes that have finished their competitions, all they want to do then is party hard. So again, there's lots of noise around the athletes' village. So, and you have to stay away from that and keep focused. And the one good thing about all of the Olympics villages, I'll say, is the food is fantastic. There's a very wide choice and all the highest quality. So great food, and you just had to entertain yourself pretty much. You had to try and find things to do that would kill time but not exhaust you in any way. So you couldn't go sightseeing. You weren't walking or doing anything. You were just training and resting. And while you're resting, you just needed to find stuff that worked. And that's maybe I should have taken a guitar with me, so I could have just sat down on one of those uncomfortable beds in my room in the Games Village and whiled away playing a few Clapton songs. But no. Didn't think to do that. No one would have thought about taking a musical instrument away. But most of the teams now, you see them, the cricket teams or some of the athletes coming back from Tokyo, and someone's got a guitar there as part of their luggage which is good.
Yeah, usually a 12-piece band. You probably would have struggled to fit a guitar in.
Well, and that's the thing. I had to travel with so much gear because I had to travel. I had half a dozen pole vaulting poles, which were five meters long, and then javelins, and then I probably had about 20 pairs of shoes, and I had about 3 bags just full of clothes with tracksuits and shorts and training gear and what have you. So I came back from an overseas trip one year, and I had I think it was 7 quite large bags plus my pole vaulting poles as checked in luggage. And thankfully the airlines are pretty good when you're wearing an Australian tracksuit. They don't charge you for excess baggage.
Yeah. I'll see if I can get through the airport with a javelin, and I'll let you know how I go.
Yeah.
Here's something that I do often wonder. So, say when you're doing your shot put or your pole vault and stuff like that, it seems like your event will get paused for one of the running events. Is that what happens? And is there a lot of, how do you keep yourself in the mindset, the competition mindset, when you have to, is there a lot of waiting around, a lot of sitting?
There is. It's a real, I guess that when you sort of break it down, you do 10.5 seconds for 100 meters and 40 odd seconds for 400. The actual amount of time that you spend competing is actually quite short. And the events like javelin or high jump, you do have to stop because sometimes your high jump run up, you actually might start it in lane 2 or lane 3 of the track. So if there's a circular track event on happening, then you have to wait until they've gone before you can run in. Same with the javelin. I can remember we were pole vaulting in Moscow, and they were throwing the javelin at the other end, and javelins were coming through and hitting the ground and coming through, and you had to sometimes jump out of the road or whatever. But I think part of the decathlon psyche really is that ability to switch on and switch off. So you have to be incredibly well focused, leading into each of the 10 events, and then you have to be able to relax and forget about what's happening or what's happened or what's coming up. And so you have to really live in the moment. And if you try to be too excited, you run out of energy. You just become mentally fatigued, and that affects your physical performance. So it's the ability to be able to live in the moment, not worry about what's happened because that's gone, that moment's gone, and not worrying about what's coming up because you're not there yet. It's really just focusing on what you're doing now, what particular event you're doing now, and that's probably a big lesson in becoming a successful decathlete or being successful generally. I think is that ability to really focus on what's important at the right time.
Beautiful. I think we've hit the 1 hour mark, so I won't keep you too much longer. The one thing I did want to talk to you about, and I found out about this seconds before I jumped on to chat with you, so I haven't had time to do my research on it. You've written a book called How to Get Fit While Watching Television.
Yeah, it was a few years ago now, and ABC Books published it and actually sold out in their first printing. But what I was trying to do was dispel all of the myths that were out there about health and fitness and exercise and nutrition. And I said to somebody, that they were telling me that they didn't have time to exercise. And I said, well, do you watch commercial television? They said, oh, yeah, watch a fair bit of it. I said, well, there's 13 minutes of ad time in a 1 hour program. So if you were really serious about doing some exercise, you could do a series of 2.5 minutes of exercises or whatever during a 1 hour television show. You wouldn't miss out on your favourite show, and you've done 13 minutes of exercise. And so that concept, then I extended it to the sorts of things that you could do at work, and then tried to look at the fact that you didn't need to be a zealot about your diet, but you needed to just generally eat good foods, but the opportunity to go out and the opportunity to go a bit crazy every now and again and have a bit of a session or do whatever, but by generally eating well without being too crazy, and by generally moving a bit and doing the sorts of things that you like to do, which get the heart rate up or get the legs moving or the arms moving. It's that simple. And as far as weight management, what you take in has to equal what you burn up. And if you're not burning up as much as you're taking in, you're going to put on weight. And all of the crazy products that are out there for weight loss and what have you, I was trying to dispel the fact that they were pretty much a waste of money, and you could do better by spending your money on other things and just basically doing something simple. So it was good fun to write it. I as an extension of that, I know nothing about computers or programming or whatever, but I got a PhD student. He and I worked together, and we really transcribed that book into a computer program back in the early 2000s, which was an animated character that could talk to you and on screen. And if you'd been on the computer for a while, it would suggest that you take a rest and here's something you could do either at the computer or whatever. It did okay for a while, but I think it drove people crazy. And the animation wasn't too great either. But it was. I think it's important though that we often don't treat our health as an important part of what we're doing, and I think that's important. If you've got good health and good relationships and you're enjoying life, I think they're the real keys. And I think a lot of people just put the health side of things on the back burner, and then they live to regret that, because they're, particularly when you sort of get to my age, when I'm 66, I'm still exercising. I still eat pretty well. I still enjoy my red wine and my beer and having a cocktail now and again. I still enjoy doing crazy things, but I'm able to jump out and have fun with my grandkids and what have you. And I know a lot of people my age can't do that. So I think that healthy lifestyle without being too crazy about it is an important thing.
That's great. Fabulous message. Well, Christopher Reeve, I want to thank you for joining us on Peter Hadfield, thank you for joining us here on the Never Ending 80s podcast.
Absolutely delighted to do it, Jason. And maybe next time we chat, we get an opportunity to do it live. And if we do that, I'll promise that I'll pick up one of those guitars in the background there, and maybe we can have a jam.
Fantastic. I will look forward to that. That is amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again soon. That's all we have time for in this episode of the Never Ending 80s podcast. If you would like to email us, you can get hold of us at ne80spodcast@gmail.com. I'm J.C.Hollywood. I'll see you next time. This episode of the Never Ending 80s podcast is brought to you by Sleishman Drum Co. Pioneering sound innovation since 1971, the Sleishman Drum Company are the inventors of the modern-day twin double bass pedal, a revolutionary product making life easier for drummers everywhere. They also pioneered the free-floating acoustic drum. Now, if like me, you have no idea what that means, it's a drum tuning system that doesn't bolt onto the drum's shell, i.e. the wooden bit that makes the drum sound good. This results in a great sounding drum with more tone than ever before. Created in Australia and still manufactured in Australia, Sleishman drums are exported around the globe to some of the world's best drummers, including Queen's own Roger Taylor. They're even the kit of choice for the Never Ending 80s own Davey Rocket. So if you are in the market for a new kit, make sure it's a Sleishman.